Well, the EU negotiating position, I must say, increasingly bizarre. I did a previous video highlighting how the EU are in a state of panic. Michel Barnier reportedly had been urging EU leaders to lobby Boris Johnson to drop his negotiating red lines in a final bid to break months of negotiating deadlock. But we now hear, in the Times, reported today, Michel Barnier refusing to open talks on a Brexit fishing deal. That's right, the EU is refusing to discuss British proposals on a future fisheries treaty, despite it being, of course, among the most contentious issues in these negotiations. So on the one hand, we've got an EU saying that the UK needs to drop red lines, and on the other hand, refusing to even discuss proposals on fisheries. And don't forget, of course, and I'll keep highlighting it, David Frost on the UK side had submitted a draft free trade agreement text that was rejected out of hand by the EU. What are they playing at in Brussels? Reported in the Times, Barnier refusing to discuss the proposals on fisheries. He will not hold talks on any issue until Britain has agreed significant concessions. The EU still seem to think they're dealing with Theresa May's pushovers. This is an increasingly ridiculous approach, I must say. The EU is blaming Britain's failure to back down. The French Foreign Minister quoted as saying negotiations are not advancing due to the intransigent and frankly unrealistic attitude of the UK. This from an EU side who won't even discuss fisheries. The French Foreign Minister telling a meeting of French ambassadors that Britain would blink first because it was faced with the economic weight and unity of 27 EU countries. Quoted as saying, on Brexit we always showed unity and proved wrong those who saw signs of an overall implosion of Europe. It is staying united that we can stick to our line and an overall agreement. I'm sorry, but this is delusional. It's been reported now that those in Brussels now take the prospect of no deal seriously. I think there's an increasing realisation that the British government, Boris Johnson's government, would be prepared to walk away with no deal. And yet we get these sort of comments. Now, European diplomats and officials are said to be increasingly pessimistic, with speculation growing that the talks will end in failure. But the EU, and I'll say it again, refusing to open talks on Brexit fishing deal, and at the same time, the EU has dismissed Britain's position on fisheries as a no-go, again, according to the Times. Mr Barnier reportedly will only accept minor changes to the historic track record in which European fishermen take the lion's share of the fish in British waters. And just to give you some numbers on that, more than 90% of channel cod is caught by European boats, with France taking 84%. 2/3 of the haddock caught in the British Irish Sea is caught by French boats. So the penny, it seems, still hasn't dropped. And isn't it bizarre? And again, I highlighted it in another video. EU sources repeatedly briefing out about their pessimism, briefing out that there needs to be a change in negotiations, and yet refusing to discuss fisheries, and yet rejecting a draft trade agreement, and rejecting, described as a no-go, a major change on fisheries. No wonder then that in the Sunday Times, the British negotiator David Frost signalled to Michel Barnier that he will recommend Britain leaves without a deal unless Brussels drops demands that the UK continues to align on things like state aid. A senior Conservative familiar with discussions said Frost and others had privately discussed whether to soften the UK's line on state aid, but Boris Johnson concluded that they should not do so. And of course, we've also heard that Dominic Cummings is absolutely dead against backing down as well. A quote saying, Frost has made clear to Barnier that as things stand, he will have to recommend to Boris that we go for no deal. There has been a discussion about whether or not to compromise on state aid, and Boris said no. Good on him. The Daily Mail reporting that Boris Johnson's chief Brexit negotiator will hold emergency talks as Michel Barnier travels to London for unscheduled talks with David Frost in a bid to break the the deadlock, said to be informal discussions. No wonder then, when you hear this ridiculous EU approach, a British government spokesman now quoted as saying, "We've been clear from the outset about the principles underlying the UK approach. We are seeking a relationship that respects our sovereignty and which has a free trade agreement at its core, similar to those the EU has already agreed with like-minded countries." The British government spokesman goes on to say, "However, the EU is still insisting not only that we must accept continuity with EU state aid and fisheries policy, but also that this must be agreed before any further substantive work can be done in any other area of the negotiation, including on legal texts, making it unnecessarily difficult to make progress. We will continue to work hard to reach agreement and look forward to the next round taking place next week." But guys, this is the reality of what's going on. The EU, and I've highlighted again, state of panic, constant EU briefings now about these negotiations, and at the same time, rejecting that draft trade text from David Frost, rejecting the UK position, and even refusing to talk about it. Refusing to talk about a future fisheries treaty, despite it being one of the most difficult elements in these negotiations, one of the most contentious elements in these negotiations. That is the reality of what is going on. And it's important to follow this because the UK side now absolutely clear, the British government, that they're going for a free trade deal. The EU increasingly seeking to maintain unfair and block competitive advantage on things like state aid, on things like fisheries. At the end of the day, guys, the transition period, as you know, the end of it is fast approaching at the end of this year. The clock is ticking, and for, again, the Times to say Michel Barnier refusing to open talks on a Brexit fishing deal, that really does say it all. But I want to know what you guys think about this. I want to know. You've told me before that we should walk away, but do you have faith in the government to do it? Or do you think what this all means is that we're about to see another massive sellout on fisheries? I really, really hope that doesn't happen, because fisheries is one of those areas where a British industry, coastal communities that have been decimated by the EU policy, we now have the opportunity to break free from that and gain massive opportunities in that area, in that industry. And of course, gain Brexit competitive advantages in areas like state aid. The clock is ticking. We'll find out soon whether the government are going to hold the line, but let me know what you think. And as ever, guys, remember to click subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss future episodes. Cheers.